Guess what? Sunday Sanctuary is produced by a non-profit, which makes perfect sense, right? And it's also quite fun because you never know where the money's going to come from. So this is your invitation to join that fun by supporting this kaupapa and helping to share something you love with even more people looking for soul-nourishing spiritual conversations. It's simple. You can choose between a one-off donation or become a regular supporter and help Sam and I keep making Sunday Sanctuary. To give now, head to our website, sundaysanctuary.nz. Kia ora, and thank you.
Baby, I can find my treasure. There's too much for me to do. Baby, I can find my treasure. Maybe my treasure rests in you.
Sunday Sanctuary with Petra Bagust.
E ngā manu, e ngā reo, mai e ngā hauewha. Ta tū mai nei ki te manga o tēnei rākau whakaruruhau. Tau mai nei ki tēnei kaupapa e pāpahu atu nei ki a koutou ara ko Sunday Sanctuary. Ko Petra Bagust tēnei, e rere ana ngā mihi ki a koutou katoa. To everyone from each corner of this country, come and rest on the branch of this sheltered tree. You are welcome to this project, this space, Sunday Sanctuary. I'm Petra Bagust, and I acknowledge you all. So, to give or not to give? We feel like this episode might contain some lowercase t trauma, that there are people who have been asked to give a lot in their lives, who have given of themselves, who have poured themselves out in service of other people or other projects. And there are people who perhaps giving is like, a nice to have. So a couple of questions. What would it look like to give from this idea that we have so much to offer? A mindset of abundance. In this episode, we're not just talking about giving money, because of course that's not our only resource. At times we don't have money to spare. And that doesn't mean we don't have anything within ourselves or within our world that isn't valuable and worth sharing. Sometimes we have our time, we have our attention, our care, perhaps food, we have love, skills, all sorts of things can be given. And especially at the moment, many of us are financially stretched. And so that brings up the question, what do we need? Perhaps what do we really need? Is there enough? For example, New Zealand grows enough food to feed 40 million humans. And in our population of 5 and a bit million humans, some are very, very hungry. At what point do we have enough to share? Or at what point do we think, maybe there is enough to go around? And when producer Sam was talking with a colleague of ours about this episode on giving, they raised a concern that there's potential to stray into this theory about giving that's called prosperity gospel. And a quick clarification for those who come from faith communities or don't, prosperity gospel refers to an interpretation of scripture that says faith is a contract to be fulfilled between us and God. So the message is along the lines of the more you give, typically financially, and usually directly to the community leader, the greater the rewards God will give you in return. So those rewards could be financial or improved health, but in essence, you're purchasing something from God. And that interpretation of scripture, I think, tends to be exploitative. It can be very harmful and manipulative, and it misses the point that above anything else, a God who created the universe wants relationship with us. That's what God desires. So breathe a sigh of relief. That's not where we're going with this. We are not suggesting that you pick a charity and give all your money to it, but I'm not going to say that sharing your resources is bad. So let's get involved, shall we? But the idea is there is no guilt trip. So you are allowed in this episode to really pay attention to your own thoughts, feelings, stirrings. They are valuable and valid. Later in this episode, we're going to hear from the wider Love It Media staff team, who I cornered on the back of our staff retreat last weekend to get their thoughts. First up, I talk with Te Waka McLeod. She's a returning Sunday Sanctuary guest, married to another former guest, artist Elliot Collins. Te Waka is Te Purutanga Māori Pūmanawa, a Māori ward councillor on New Plymouth District Council. That's one of her roles, and she has been shaped deeply and beautifully in how she gives by her incredible māma. Tēnā koe, Te Waka McLeod. So lovely to be talking to you again.
Always lovely to talk to you, Petra.
It's good to revisit old friends and to kōrero again. I like it. This time we are talking about giving, and depending on your context, your horopaki, how you feel about giving is really, really diverse. Like, it's so different. I go to and support a lot of charities, and they're like, if you give this, you'll get your tax back. If you give this, you'll change somebody's life. If you give this, you'll feel good. There seem to be this plethora of reasons to give. Can I ask you personally what your orientation towards giving is?
Personally, I grew up with a mum that was very giving of her everything with nothing. And so therefore that shaped the way that I look and view giving or koha when it comes to the way that I live my life, when it comes to hosting, when it comes to money, when it comes to time, clothes, energy. So that's something that was modeled to me from the day I was born. And so therefore from a personal perspective, I probably overgive in many ways, to the point of maybe exhaustion or,
I've experienced this. I've had you join us for celebrations and then give me a gift to say thank you for having me, and you've already contributed with your time and energy. We've stayed at a marae and you've been collecting the koha from all the participants to give, from the manuhiri, from the visitor to the kāinga, to the house, to the home, the place where we are actually experiencing hospitality and manaakitanga. So I've experienced your what I would call it stewardship, because you seem to me to be really fiscally strategic. You're somebody who budgets, you save, like you are somebody who is financially literate, and yet you are outrageously generous.
Yeah, well, I also married someone who also is very generous in spirit and in every way. And so the combination of that is an interesting dynamic, to the point of maybe not realizing how much, and this isn't a bad thing. It's not a bad thing that we give lots of our energy and time and money and resources. But I think there's a real balance where you have to stop and think, why are we doing this? Like, what's the why? What's the intent behind giving? What's the intent behind giving a koha? And I think that's where it actually stems from, is the intent in which you do it. So what is, do you live with a spirit of generosity, or is it an obligation to people are coming, so do I just say yes because we have spare rooms? Or is it actually with a grudge going, I don't really have time or energy to host, but I am anyway because that's just how I was brought up. So there is this tension between what we say yes and no to when it comes to giving. But again, it goes back to the intent around, why am I doing this?
You've raised a really important point, because I think there isn't freedom unless we can say yes and no, because doing what we perceive to be the right thing, in inverted commas, resentfully, is counterproductive, right? Can I ask you, culturally, what is your understanding about the tikanga around koha? Like, what does koha mean? Because I'm hearing it used a lot, and sometimes I'm like, ooh, I don't think that's koha.
Yeah, I mean, the classic at the moment is it's a koha, but it's $20 or it's $50. So is that actually a koha? Because you're actually telling someone what to give or what to contribute to a pool of money. I think for me, culturally growing up, there's no option in terms of, well, there is an option, but in terms of giving, it wasn't always monetary. And I think the way in which we give now is monetary because we also have full-time jobs and we also have to commit to our whānau, and we need to make that money, we need to go to our work. But again, just from learning growing up, koha was all about your time, what resources your iwi or your hapu had. So if you go to places like Tūranga Waiwai, like Kingitanga, Rātana, and even other marae around the place, you always see that level of giving from different regions, giving different things based on what they have in terms of kumara. If that's something that your iwi are really good at growing, then that's what you would give. And so it wasn't always monetary. However, I think we have turned to koha in a monetary way because that's an easy way to give. That's an easy way to contribute to a wider kaupapa. Your time, so time at the marae equals annual leave. And so how much annual leave days does the government give us? And so you have to measure that and you have to weigh that up. Do I actually have time to give annual leave to this kaupapa? Do I take it unpaid? And so those are the negotiations that we as Māori are often having to have and having to think through this, because it's not just a given that we're going to turn up to do the hangi at a tangi, or we're going to turn up to call all the manuhiri on for 3 days or 4 days, depending on how long. So there is this real weight around what it means to give your time and energy and money or resource to a kaupapa, to a tangihanga, to a pōhiri. And when we look at a marae setting and we see the prices of, first of all, we see a price set per person often now within our marae. Now, the reason why that's often happened is because we no longer give a koha that will fulfill the financial need within that marae, and so therefore they have had to set up other means of doing that, because I think we haven't been able to meet those financial obligations to a marae or a kaupapa. Therefore, we have to start charging. And so there has, from when I was a child to now, there has been a shift in terms of how we koha, monetary koha, because of that.
Mm. How do you feel about that? Is that okay? Is that just a sign of the times and it's good for that marae to be able to recognise and request what it needs?
Yeah, I think the generational shift in terms of that, so kahukura my son, won't even know potentially about how it was when I was a child. And so the set way of being is actually how it will be set up in the future. And so I do think it's a change and a move in times. And I think it's okay that a marae makes the call based on what their needs are. They still need to pay the power for those 4 days. Or
the rates,
or,
the insurance.
The rates. Yeah. And so they still need to pay the insurance. So they do need to cover those costs. And when you've got 100 people, up to 500 people showering, they also need to pay the water. And so yes, absolutely, I think the marae needs to make a call on that.
So can we talk, we've talked a bit about the challenges of giving. Like I honestly think that there are communities that are built around the idea of giving being a human essential action. It's like, this is what human beings do. And I'm going to say Indigenous culture, Tao Māori, koha is woven within the way of being. I would say within Christian culture, giving is woven within the way of being. It is part of the sacred text that they gave as each of them had, and nobody, to meet everybody's needs. As a religious community or a faith-based community, that giving, I know, is an incredible thing. It's incredible to give your time and energy in service of what you perceive to be the good of humanity, like the flourishing, the well-being of your community, of people. Look after widows, look after the elderly, look after those who are sick and needy. And then there's also another layer that's happened, which is about guilt. Like, have you given enough? And are you giving enough? And you need to give more, and you need to give more than you've got. So anything that is practiced for a long time is open to malpractice or pressures or just becoming less healthy.
Yeah, and I think there's an interesting thing with the Charities Commission now where you get a part back So, we do give, as you give to trust, you give to charities. And I know for a lot of people, there's always that conversation where you will get part of it back because it is. So I wonder how that's also changed the way that we give when it comes to giving to a charity, and whether that's shaped, like when we are giving, we know that we're going to get a certain percentage back. So there is that, I think, a different way that we give. And maybe it's not something we intentionally think about, but I do know that there is that sitting in the back of our minds now. And I do wonder whether that's changed the way that we give, maybe.
Positively?
Positively and negatively, because I think you aren't just thinking about giving, you're actually getting something back. And I don't think that that's actually the spirit of giving. I think the spirit of giving is about giving, not receiving in that particular giving moment. And so there is something, I think, positive and negative about that. And I'm not saying that we all do that, but I do know it sits in the back of our minds when we do that.
Yeah, I just think the weird alchemy of giving is that you can't not receive. I just think that's the craziest thing about it. When you're kind to somebody, when you give your love and attention for a moment to somebody and they respond with a smile, you're receiving. When you give in the best sense of the word your resource, time, energy, action, money, you get something that you do. There's a reciprocity to that. So is there a difference between reciprocity and transaction? Like, I'm doing this so that I feel less guilty and can sleep at night, or so that I can get the monkey off my back? Or am I giving because this is just a deeply, powerfully human thing to do that is resonantly good?
Which it goes back to the intent. What's your intent in giving time, money? And is the intent just to give to, to help whatever it is, whether it's a human, whether it's an organisation, to actually just flourish and receive in a really beautiful way? Or is there something within us that is going, what am I going to receive back from this? And interestingly, I had a conversation at the council this morning around someone's being very generous and giving, and the conversation around that was, they want to give this money. They don't want anyone to know. However, they would like a plaque put up, right? And so there's this, we don't want to be recognised, but we actually do want to be recognised, and we want everyone to see that recognition. Now, you might not have your name on there, but there's still something now that symbolises that you've given. And so that I came into today with that conversation at the council, and I just had that sitting in the back of my head. What is that? Like, what is that little thing that does actually want to be recognised?
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Do you reckon we've maybe lost just the giving for giving's sake, just because, for no recognition?
I think so. I think we have lost a little bit of that. Because I don't think, when I think about my mum, I don't think anything about her giving anything of her life was about getting anything back. Maybe the thing for her was that her kids would model that in the future around giving, and we do see that. But unfortunately, she's not here to see that. But I don't know that was an intentional thing that she ever thought about, but I do wonder whether that might have been something deep down within her. But she wasn't someone who ever, we could see anything about getting anything back.
Can I ask, why do you think she did give then? What was it in her that propelled her to give?
I think for her, it was just a part of what she didn't receive growing up. She wanted to do something that was different to how she grew up. And I think she deeply seen the need in the community. And so her time and energy, and I've spoken about this before, but she would work at a second-hand shop, and she had lots of kids in her life outside of us kids, and she would fill bags. She would name them with kids' names, and they would line her room, and it would take a while for her to fill up because she was quite funky in terms of the way that she dressed and how she could recognise labels and different clothes. And so she would fill those bags for those kids, and then when they would come over with their mum, she would give it to them. Now, there was nothing about getting anything back from that. She just went in with a generous spirit.
Wow. Like I can imagine being a kid who'd been thought of and had a bag filled with them in mind, with clothes that they might want to wear, not that they have, not just cast off, so you can, this is your lot. But I have been thinking about you and I have filled this bag with you in mind. That's more than clothes, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
And so here's your mother who financially would be perceived from the outside to be poor and to not have much, to lack even. And here she is with a very rich life, with a life that she is resourcing herself and others through her generosity of spirit, through her generous action. What did that have on your perception of the world and of giving?
I think there were two things that happened. One that was modelled to us in a really positive way, and so we watched that. We continue to live, and I would say that with all my brothers, we continue to live that lifestyle in terms of giving, sometimes to the detriment of oneself in terms of not getting enough sleep or, but my brothers will always be there. Every tangi, every kaupapa, you will always have one of my brothers there at the hagi pit, or like that is what they model, to the point of like, do you need to be at work today or at the hangi? And that probably means more to them than going to work, even if it means that they might lose their job or they might have to take leave without pay. But also on the flip side of that, I think especially for me, I'll speak for myself, I often, like we used to have kids come and stay, and there used to be this little bit of like, why don't I just get my mum to myself? Mm. Like, why are we getting these kids that potentially have been naughty or their parents can't look after them? Now all of a sudden I have to share a room. So that was maybe a thought that I had in the moment, but that has completely shifted now as an adult. I'm like, that is the most generous thing, and I got to share everything and got to experience what it meant to have a sister living in my room with me, or different people staying over. I just see the beauty in how my mum and why my mum did that.
It feels like her life was very abundant, like very expansive, very inclusive. It feels like it was a large life.
It was a large life, and it was very inclusive on every level. Yeah. And even what's interesting is my mum was a weaver, so she wove lots of things, and she would give them away. So she wouldn't charge for lots of them, and she would give them away. When she passed away, I started getting all of those bags back. And us kids didn't necessarily have lots of weaving because we were still young, and that wasn't something that was super important to us at the time. And so I've received many things that my mum wove, gave to someone, and then have been returned back to me. And so just even in that act, like she never thought this was going to come back to my daughter one day and be passed down generations. That was never part of her thinking. She was also a kaimerimeri, so she was a masseuse, and she would make her own oil out of, rongoa. She would find leaves and trees and boil it up and make special potions. And we've also received those oils back that she made. And so I have oils sitting on my in my whare now that I'm like, what do I do with this? And just so special for me. So that she never would have thought that would have come back. She made, with her intent for that oil, was to bless that person, bless that family. And 20 years later,
it's a taonga, it's a treasure in its return. Amazing. Yeah, no, I think the lovely thing about this kōrero has been how the giving has been centred in the personhood of your mama, and that the type of koha and the type of giving that she expressed and experienced in her life is like a metaphor for giving, that she gave out of a need, she gave out of a desire, she gave out of love, she gave out of the rightness of giving, and that without it being intentionally to give her a better life, it gave her a big, beautiful, communal, rich life. I think it's a really wonderful example of changing a narrative and of living a life that was, resounding.
I think that spirit of generosity, like what does that look like in your life? Do you have a spirit of generosity? If not, how do you build on a spirit of generosity? Is there a spirit of generosity in your smile? Is there a spirit of generosity in you walking by someone? Is there a spirit of generosity in you walking into a store and saying hello or kia ora or tēnā koe? Or is it just shut down right from that moment? So I think it starts with all the little things. So you can go to the big things like giving money or hosting or buying lunch for someone, but actually what does it look like with saying a yes, smiling?
What does it look like to drive with a spirit of generosity?
Ooh. And let me just say, I am not the best at this every time, like we all, I think, have I have lots of moments of not having that spirit of generosity. And it's often within a council setting, I have to check myself all the time around a spirit of generosity, especially when someone has a completely different view to me. How do I have a spirit of generosity in that? Does it mean that I pull faces when they're saying something absolutely ridiculous, or sitting with that opinion and just being okay with that?
Wow, yeah, spirit of generosity and thought. There's a challenge. A spirit of generosity in attitude. These are amazing practices. This is a good challenge.
Yeah, and I don't think there's like step 1, step 2, step 3 either. It's if this wasn't modeled to you, how do you learn this? Well, you just watch people that may have a spirit of generosity. They have, or surround yourself, connect with someone that is generous and how they lead.
Like you say, there's not one way. It's like, how would we show up with a spirit of generosity? And then who are we hanging out with? What are we swimming in? And it feels wider, expanding. It just, anyway, I'm in, and it's okay to say no.
It's okay to say no. And I think that's also generosity of spirit to yourself and to your whānau and to your husband. I often have to say no just to hang out with my husband. And I think that that's actually the way that you continue giving, actually giving to the people that are closest to you. Often they miss out because you're so giving to so many other people. And so when you just need to hang out with your babies or your nana or your mum, it's okay to say no. And that's probably the hardest thing for me in terms of not committing to things.
Ngā mihi nui kia koe. Thank you for sharing the story of your mama and your whakairo, your thinking. It's so good. It's lovely to have an insight into your life of giving. The overarching impression I am left with of Te Waka's mama is even if and when her giving was in response to having not had enough, there was a richness and a generosity in how she thought and acted towards others. And it doesn't seem to be motivated by guilt or revenge or desperation or scarcity. It is as if there was enough to go around. I am, I guess, profoundly inspired by hearing the story of Te Waka's mama's life and seeing in Te Waka an incredible practice of generosity. Yeah, it's very cool. Feel free to share or send this episode to someone you think might appreciate it. It's awesome when you leave us a review where you listen, so Apple Music or Spotify or wherever that is. Those reviews help other people find the podcast. And if you want to hang out with us on Instagram, we're at Sunday Sanctuary NZ. See you there.
Sunday Sanctuary.
Give it away, give it away, give it away now. Give it away
that was a little taste of Give It Away by the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and just kind of a vibrant exhortation. So we're going to switch mode a little bit now, because our sacred text today is also about abundance, but it's from the book Braiding Sweetgrass by Wall-Kimmerer. It's in chapter 3 called The Gift of Strawberries, and this part of the book comes just after Robin describes the fields full of wild strawberries she grew up exploring and picking from. Those fields of my childhood showered us with strawberries, raspberries, blackberries, hickory nuts in the fall, bouquets of wild flowers brought to my mom, and family walks on Sunday afternoon. They were our playground, retreat, wildlife sanctuary, ecology classroom, and the place we learned to shoot tin cans off the stone wall. All for free, or so I thought. I experienced the world in that time as a gift economy. Goods and services not purchased, but received as gifts from the earth. Of course, I was blissfully unaware of how my parents must have struggled to make ends meet in the wage economy, raging far from this field. In our family, the presents we gave one another were almost always homemade. I thought that was the definition of a gift, something you made for someone else. We made all our Christmas gifts, piggy banks from old Clorox bottles, hot pads from broken clothespins, and puppets from retired socks. My mother says it was because we had no money for store-bought presents. It didn't seem like a hardship to me. It was something special. My father loves wild strawberries, so for Father's Day, my mother would almost always make him a strawberry shortcake. She baked the crusty shortcakes and whipped the heavy cream, but we kids were responsible for the berries. We each got an old jar or two and spent the Saturday before the celebration out in the fields, taking forever to fill them as more and more berries ended up in our mouths. Finally, we returned home and poured them out onto the kitchen table to sort out the bugs. I'm sure we missed some, but Dad never mentioned the extra protein. So with those strawberries and that field in mind, I would love you to take a moment, a breath, a pause, to breathe deeply, to inhale all that is good. Just take in a deep breath of love. And as you exhale, breathe that love right back out. I'm inviting you for a moment to consider and reflect on 2 questions. The first question is, what do you need? Feel free to allow any thought or idea to come up. What is it that you need? And there may be layers to this. I'm going to leave you with that question for a moment. And as you have thought about what you need, consider asking for it. Ask for what you need. Now, that may be enough for you. I'm going to add one more question, but there's no obligation to move through to this question at all. What do you have to share? What is within your presence, your power, your person, your space that you have to give? And I love the idea that both of these are extremely valid, that we both have needs and gifts.
It's time for communion, when we take a moment to reflect on the last meal that Jesus shared with his friends the night before he was executed, when he broke bread and shared wine and asked his disciples to do this and remember him whenever they got together. Let me go on a bit of a tangent. Many years ago, I worked for a charity for a year, primarily working with troubled teenagers. And at this charity, we did not get paid. Instead, we had to raise our own financial support through friends, family, and whoever believed in the good of the work that we were doing. During that year, on at least 3 occasions, I received an anonymous envelope in my letterbox with cash in it. Quite large amounts, $300, $400, $600. I was very grateful, as you can imagine, and it always seemed to come at just the right time when I needed it. And I had no idea who had given me the money. To this day, 3 decades later, I still don't know. It made me feel grateful towards lots of people who it could have been. I'd be talking to someone and thinking, I wonder if it was them. And it meant I had a sort of pervasive sense of gratitude and humility towards, well, nearly everyone, because it could have been anyone. And it inspired me over the years since to give anonymously, because it feels like then we're participating in something sacred. We're acknowledging our fundamental interdependence. It's no longer transactional. It dissolves the boundary between the giver and the receiver. We're part of a community where people give without expecting direct return. Another time, just after my wife and I got married, we were doing our OE. We were backpacking on a shoestring budget, and we visited a friend in Frankfurt who was doing pretty well financially. He and his wife invited us to a classy restaurant and immediately ordered champagne. And as we were handed the menus, Annalise and I were quietly freaking out about blowing a week of travel budget on a single meal when our friend said, "So there's no ambiguity, tonight is on us." The meal was a joy and so memorable because it was a gift of generosity and clarity. Ever since then, whenever I've been able to, I've repeated that line before the meal, just so there's no ambiguity, tonight is on us. In both these cases, the generosity that I received inspired in me the deep desire to pay it forward. And the idea of paying it forward is resonant in every cell in our body because we're created that way. In the Gospel of John, Jesus says, "As I have loved you, love one another." And when we come to communion, we're remembering the greatest act of love, the greatest act of giving ever known, Jesus' sacrifice of himself, so that we can experience life in all its fullness. Communion, at its heart, is about recognizing that we're all dependent on something bigger than ourselves. We're all sustained by an act of generosity we didn't earn and we can't repay. But in a small way, we can pay it forward.
It's time now for our main waiata, after which you will hear the experience of giving and being given to by a suite of staff from Love It Media. As I mentioned, we're at the end of a staff retreat and I pulled them all aside and said, tell me about your experience of giving and being given to. First up, here is the inimitable Natalie Merchant with the song Kind and Generous. Can you think of a time when you were given something that was, useful or helpful or important in your life?
Yes. My husband and our 2 kids had just moved to America, and the year before we had lost my mum to cancer. And he surprised me with it's called a womb chair. This big blue chair. It's a designer chair. It was obviously a replica of the designer chair. And actually, my dad had bought one for my mum that sits at their batch on Waiheke when they first bought this batch together. She was studying interior design, and so he brought it as a surprise gift for her. And then, having just lost my mum and we were having to refurnish from scratch this house in America, my husband surprised me with the same blue womb chair. And so every time, I still have it, we moved it back in the shipping container, and every time I sit on it, it's my chair, just like that chair was Mum's chair when it was when she was at the batch. And it just reminds me of her. It reminds me of, it's very bright blue. Doesn't fit really much in our house anymore, but it signifies, it just reminds me of Mum, like I'm being scooped up.
When I was younger, I had a youth pastor and mentor kind of identify a need, that I was in need of some mentorship and just some guidance. And he would take time out every month, every week at some points, to have a coffee with me. And that without him and without that time and input, I wouldn't be where I am today. And I wouldn't be the person I am today without that either.
When you say helped you become the person you are today, like, is there a concrete example of something that they like were influenced, or like were you on a path to becoming a renegade?
I think at that point when I was in my early teen years, I was quite bitter, resentful, and couldn't quite make sense of the world in some regards. And I think he didn't lay out the path for me. He was just there beside me and talked through some of those feelings and helped me discover my own way, as opposed to, all right, bud, this is the way you should go. It's that approach that worked for me, yeah.
And it was the gift of care, time, attention. Is that how you describe it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was gifted a house. Well, my mum was gifted a house, but it's kind of changed our life in terms of where we're located, where we get to live, the impact that's had on our finances, the freedoms that we've been able to have as a family, but also as a young adult in New Zealand, being able to stay at home somewhere local, somewhere where we don't have to worry about any of that kind of stuff. And it was just an insane moment of generosity.
That's a pretty insane story, being given a house.
Yeah.
And like, what I know of the story,
yeah,
this woman said, I'm going to give you a house when I die. You'll inherit this house.
Correct.
And then she decided to be like, actually, no, you can have the house now.
Yeah.
It is insane, isn't it?
It is insane. It's absolutely insane.
What do you think was motivating her?
I know from the history of her life and what was going on for her at the time. She was by herself, and we had lived across the road from her for years and years and years. And so we eventually, slowly over time, became her adopted family. And I think her motivation, one, was grounded in this idea with family and this idea of passing on to the next generation. And as the closest thing to family that she had, we were on the receiving end of that.
Is there a time in your life when you were surprised by being given like time or energy or resource or something, and you were like, whoa, and what impact did it have on you?
I think with our family, we've always been about quality time. And my parents were always really intentional about trying to include friends in family moments. I was probably about 12 or 13. Mom and Dad said, hey, would you like to get your friends together? And so I got to get 2 friends, and we decided to go out to the IMAX theater in the city, which was a big deal because we were out from East. And we got to go into Planet Hollywood. We had a big dinner. We went to IMAX to the movies, and that felt very special. And none of my friends had ever done any of that thing before. And it was impactful for them, where it felt normal to me, and it was quite a special moment.
And what did that, like, your parents are giving to you because you get your friends to go on that experience, and they're giving to your friends.
Yes.
Now, what was that like for you to just share that experience with them?
It was lovely because it felt like I was gifting them the experience, even though it was my parents paying the bill. It was special in the fact that it was taking them into my journey, into my shared experience with them. And they became part of the family in that kind of moment.
Can you think of a time in your own life where you have been there for somebody or given somebody something and you've been like, what the impact of that has been? Like, so the inverse.
Right, yeah. I teamed up with an organisation called Brothers in Arms, and they're now called Upside, I believe. And I met a 13-year-old boy
through that program,
Through that program, and I spent every Saturday morning, or Saturday really, with him for 2, if not 3, 2 years, say. And then the next 2 years it was probably every month or something. And I like to think that at a time in his life where he essentially didn't have a father, that I was someone solid in his life that he could depend on, turning up for him, caring for him, caring about him.
Yeah, I mean, just recently we've had, strangely enough, 3 people in our world, all in their 30s, all newish dads, all diagnosed with cancer.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's been a crazy couple of months, and then we were able to give financially to their give-a-littles and different things, and then their response as people not of faith was even more interesting or grateful, I guess, maybe, because it feels less common in that circle than in our circles. Like, we hear stories about this stuff in church all the time.
So do you give because you have to, because you want to, because you ought to? What's the motor that fuels your giving?
That one was my wife and I talking, and she was like, hey, I feel we should give to this. And it was an amount that was like, well, maybe we should think about it. So slept, woke up, and then we both had the same number, and we felt like it was a God thing. And so we're like, okay, I think God's in it. And if he is the one that's telling us to do that, then who are we to say no?
Birthday's really important in my family and friends, and so I try to do either a text message or a phone call or a flower from the garden for friends' birthdays and family birthdays. And even if it's not something super expensive, it's taking that moment of my time and energy and gifting them the remembrance of their birthday.
Cool. So that's something that is like a practice in your life. Like you commit yourself to remembering all of your friends' birthdays.
Yes. And try to remember their kids' birthdays too. But yeah, sometimes it gets a little bit crazy. But yeah, I try to remember those important kind of milestones.
I think most recently it was when my dad had a stroke 2 months ago now. And I was in Christchurch just for a week's visit. And I decided to push out my trip just another week to spend time with my parents and do dishes and help with my niece as well, and just be there for whatever mum needed during that time, and going to visit dad in the nights. And I think it was actually just a privilege for me to be able to do that, to be a good son. It wasn't about virtue or proving how good you are. It's just that was my duty, and I'm glad to have been able to do that in that situation.
And I'll leave you with a whimsical benediction from the incredible Michael Lune and his book, When I Talk to You. And I guess this plays with the idea of being given to. God, give us rain when we expect sun. Give us music when we expect trouble. Give us tears when we expect breakfast. Give us dreams when we expect a storm. Give us a stray dog when we expect congratulations. God, play with us, turn us sideways and around. Amen.